No, Christine said flatly. I withdrew money from my own business account, the one he'd coerced me into contributing to the family fund. Marissa nodded, addressing the jury. So she was simply taking back what was hers. Objection, Hale barked. Counsel is testifying. Overruled, the judge replied. Glancing over at Cody, with a handful of carefully phrased questions, Marissa had turned the whole conversation around. One more thing, she murmured. Did Mr. Brown ever threaten you financially? Christine locked eyes with Cody. Every day, she told him coldly. He said if I ever left, I'd get nothing. Not a dime. The jury squirmed uncomfortably. One man in the front row nodded slowly, a look of sympathy in his eyes. No further questions. Christine stood down, back erect, face pale but unyielding. She passed Cody without so much as a look, though his eyes blazed with anger. The judge nodded to the bailiff. Call the next witness. The room fell silent. Everyone was aware who came next. Janelle Brown stood up, her face as calm as stone. She walked towards the stand, in unruffled, deliberate steps, wearing a gray blazer, her hair tight at the back of her head. Christine had been fiery. Janelle was icy. She folded her hands in her lap, after taking the oath. Mrs. Brown, Marissa started. How long were you married to the defendant? Nearly 30 years. And for how long were you engaged in planning the family finances? Janelle leaned her head to one side. I did the books, wrote the checks. I accounted for every dollar that came in and went out. A shiver ran through the courtroom. Even Hale faltered in her playing. If anyone knew Cody's secrets when it came to money, it was Janelle. Tell us what you discovered, Marissa instructed. Janelle opened a folder full of neatly stacked papers. Bank statements, ledgers, highlighted printouts. She handed them over to the bailiff, who presented them to the judge. These, she announced, matter-of-factly, are from Nevada accounts. Cody said they were investment and tax accounts. But then I dug further, and I discovered they were linked to shell companies. Companies that employed no one, had no assets, just names. There were gasps throughout the courtroom. Cody's face went pale. And how much money was wired into these accounts? Marissa asked. More than $250,000, Janelle answered emphatically. The jurors looked on in shock, mumbling to themselves. Objection, Hale yelled. Speculation. Overruled, the judge cut in. This witness handled the books. Marissa nodded. In your professional judgment, was Mr. Brown concealing money from his family? Yes. Janelle replied with no hesitation, and I can prove it. A chill ran through the room. Evidence was on its way, and everyone knew it. Janelle rummaged through her purse and extracted a miniature flash drive. On this trip, she spoke calmly, are emails between a financial advisor and Cody Brown. In them he describes how to guard his assets in case his marriage falls apart. He refers to it, Plan B. Cody lunged forward, his face reddening. That's private mail, he snarled. The judge's gavel came down with a sound of thunder. Sit down, Mr. Brown. The jurors' eyes flicked between the flash drive and Cody's angry face. The courtroom hummed like a disturbed hive of bees. Marissa Caldwell, the prosecutor, smiled slightly. Your Honor, the state moves to admit these emails into evidence. So admitted, the judge declared. Cody sank back into his chair, muttering to his lawyer, who leaned in close, whispering furiously. At the witness stand, Janelle sat calm and unflinching, like someone who'd finally decided to set fire to the lies. The judge raised his hand. We'll take a recess. Court will reconvene at 2 p.m. The gavel struck again, and the room descended into anarchy. Reporters dashed for the doors, strobe lights flashing, shouts clashing. Christine pushed through the crowd to embrace Janelle, weeping. Mary stood apart, her face impassive, but her eyes never leaving Cody. At the defense table, Cody sat rigid and glassy-eyed. The facade had cracked. The confident patriarch was no more. Instead, a man trapped by his own deeds. His attorney, Martin Hale, had attempted to discredit Christine previously, but Janelle had prepared. She had evidence, and in the following session, that evidence would be impossible to ignore. When court reconvened after lunch, The atmosphere was charged. The courthouse was filled. Reporters had overnighted outside, and all news networks were broadcasting live from outside the building. Inside, expectation was palpable enough to eat. Cody was hardly the put-together man of the initial sessions. His tie was crooked, his golden hair crisping in the fluorescent lighting. His jaw worked constantly as he growled at Hale, who continued to tap his pen tensely against a legal pad. Across the aisle, Marissa Caldwell's team glided with serene confidence, setting out documents and laptops with precision surgical skill. Christine and Janelle perched in the front row, a formidable solidarity, faces pinched but unflinching. Mary sat behind them, hands clasped tightly in her lap, eyes locked on the bench. "Court is back in session," the bailiff declared. The gavel cracked once. "Miss Caldwell," the judge said, "you may proceed." And just like that, the moment finally came. Marissa remained standing firm. "Your Honor, the state presents Exhibit Feth into evidence, a series of bank statements and email communications subpoenaed and directly traceable to the defendant." Hale leaped to his feet, voice cutting. "Objection, those records are in context and prejudicial." The judge did not even bat an eyelash. "The court has already heard argument on admissibility." Overruled. Hale's jaw snapped shut. The bailiff carried the flash drive to the clerk, who inserted it into the courtroom's projection system. The screen flashed to life, humming softly as lines of figures and bank logos scrolled across it. There it was: money trails, wire transfers, balances, hard, irrefutable numbers. And on each page, Cody Brown's name shone in bold black letters. Marissa moved towards the jury. "Members of the jury," she stated, "these transactions occurred between late 2019 and early 2021. During those years, Mr. Brown consistently informed his family that funds were low. Yet, as you can observe," she activated the remote. A highlighted line illuminated on the screen. "December 14, 2019, $75,000 wire transfer to Sunrise Holdings LLC. Sunrise Holdings is a Nevada shell company. No employees, no offices, just a P.O. box." She clicked again. The next slide flashed on. That same day, the same amount of money, $75,000, was taken out of the Browns' joint family account. The jury murmured among themselves. Christine shuddered, teeth chattering. Janelle made a note on a notepad and handed it quietly to the prosecutor's aide. Marissa moved on to the next slide. March 2, 2020, $50,000 deposited into Robin Brown's private account. Gasp waves ran through the courtroom. "Let me be absolutely clear," Caldwell declared, her words cutting through the air. "This was not money earned by Cody and Robin alone. This was money from the family. Money that was meant to be shared equally." Cody grumbled to himself, fists bunched. Hale grasped his shoulder, attempting to hold him in place. But the anger in Cody's eyes flared at the glowing screen. Every new name was another nail in his coffin. But Caldwell was far from finished. "Now, members of the jury," she said, her tone dipping, "these transactions appear haphazard. But when lined up in order, a very distinct pattern reveals itself." The lights flickered downward. On screen, a new graphic had appeared. A timeline with red and blue bars. Red for deposits to Robin, blue for withdrawals from shared accounts. The trend was clear. Each blue bar was immediately followed by a red bar within 24 hours, which, Caldwell said emphatically, is called laundering, shuffling money between accounts to conceal ownership. "And the fellow who's been doing it," she gestured, arm extended, "is sitting right here." Her finger came down firmly on Cody. The courtroom exploded. Gasps, yells, flashes. The judge pounded the gavel again and again. "Order, order in the court." But the damage was done. The jury had witnessed it all. When the commotion eventually died down, Caldwell advanced once more. "Figures can tell part of a story," she said. "But words, his own words, tell the rest." She waved up another document. "Your Honor, request to introduce Exhibit G. The defendant's emails." "Continue," instructed the judge. The initial email came onto the screen. The jury leaned in. "From Cody Brown to J. Reynolds, financial advisor, subject Plan B, date July 5, 2020. Caldwell read it out aloud. "If things are going to keep heading south with the wives, we need a backup. I want Robin and me safe no matter what. Suggest options to lock down assets so they can't come after them. The room lapsed into shocked silence. Christine's hand went to her mouth. Janelle's face froze, eyes burning. A juror mouthed the words, "Can't come after them," in shock. Cody sat back in his chair, a hand to his eyes. The courtroom wasn't only hearing betrayal now, they were reading it. Caldwell moved on to the next email. From Cody Brown to J. Reynolds. Subject: trust date September 11th, 2020. Create new trust in Robin's maiden name. Use no paper trail that ties to family accounts. Transfer money in under $10,000 amounts, if need be, to keep it below the radar. The gallery was filled with gasps. Reporters hurried, stumbling almost over each other, as they attempted to get down every word. The gavel of the judge boomed. Quiet. I will have quiet in this courtroom. But there was no quiet in anyone's head now. The jury had watched the blueprint of deceit, straight from Cody's own computer. Hale sprang to his feet. Objection. These messages are taken out of context. They are drafts, discussions, speculation. The judge didn't blink. Overruled. The words speak for themselves. Cody buried his head in his hands. He didn't look like a leader for the first time. He looked like he was watching his world crumble. The jurors weren't hearing the lawyers anymore. They were hearing Cody's own treachery ringing off the walls of the courtroom. Caldwell faced the witness stand again. Mrs. Brown, you provided these emails, right? Yes, Janelle replied decisively. Her tone was cold, unfaltering. And how did you get them? Janelle drew herself up. He used the home computer. He never logged out. I found the drafts, the sent mail, the entire thing. Hale growled, so you tapped his email. Janelle's response cut like glass. No. I shared a residence there. It was a family computer. He had them open. I just could not shut my eyes. The jury whispered. A ripple of quiet spreading through the courtroom. The judge's gavel came down again. But the air remained charged. Electric. Caldwell leaned forward, her gaze snapping to Janelle. Mrs. Brown, what do these emails say in your opinion? Janelle spoke in ice tones, cutting and calculated. Cody Brown never meant to share Coyote Pass, never meant to view us as equals. He was scheming his departure with Robin, and he would kill us to make it happen. Her words hit hard. The judge caught a glance at the clock. We will recess for the day. Court continues tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp. The gavel came down. Hell broke loose. Microphones thrust into Christine's face and Janelle's. Flashbulbs went off. Christine shook her head. Mute. Janelle strode fast, jaw clenched, leaving a ripple of unease behind her. At the defense table, Cody sat stiff, white, his eyes black voids. Hale bent forward, speaking in a low, urgent tone, but Cody didn't stir. He was the man reading his own obituary. The jury had read the emails, the bank statements, the mask slip. Next session would be him on the witness stand. His words could save him, or bury him alive. The following morning, the courthouse buzzed like a stormy beehive. Photographers shoved past security, cameras colliding, reporters talking over one another. Would Cody take the stand? Had the defense shifted gears? In courtroom 4B, the gallery was packed. Camera operators wrestled for shots. Sister Wives enthusiasts huddled with notebooks, eager to capture every phrase. The air was tight, charged as if all of them intuitively knew a reckoning was about to transpire. Behind the aisle, Cody Brown sat rigid as a board. His gold curls brushed to shine, but his face was pinched, eyes dark-rimmed with sleepless nights. His navy suit constricted across his shoulders, as if suffocating. Martin Hale inched forward, whispered. Cody nodded stiffly. He attempted a smile, but it was a flutter, a thin veil over fear. The gavel of the judge came down. Court is in session. Mr. Hale, call your witness. Hale stood. The defense calls Cody Brown. Gasps shook the courtroom. For the first time in decades, the man who had ruled over his family would confront that which he could not master. The truth sworn. Cody stood, smoothed his jacket, the squeak of his shoes, the only noise on the hardwood floor. He raised his right hand, swore the oath, and sank into the chair, holding on for dear life to the arms. Hale's voice was soothing. Mr. Brown, would you please get to know the jury? Cody coughed. I'm Cody Brown. I was a 25-plus-year husband in a plural marriage. I'm a father of 18 children, and I never ever intended to hurt my family. Some jurors nodded. Others looked blankly. Hale went on, Mr. Brown, the prosecution made you out to be a manipulator. A man who lied, concealed funds and broke trust. What is your truth? Cody took a deep breath, chest inflating. The thing is, I did what I had to do to guard my family. Plural marriage isn't natural. It isn't simple. We were under the microscope constantly. Government, community, even church. I transferred funds not to be disloyal, but to protect us. Cody wasn't testifying. He was acting, attempting to revive the patriarch the world knew from television. Cody slouched forward, voice strained with feeling. Cody Pass was supposed to be our future, the legacy of my children. The thought that I took from Christine, from Janelle, from Mary, is absurd. I gave for them, my time, my work. And yes, I gave more in the end, because she remained loyal. She remained with me when the others deserted me. A murmur ran through the gallery. Christine's face screwed up, but she didn't turn away. Janelle crossed her arms, her eyes glacial. Hale nodded curtly. So you're saying this wasn't fraud, this was protection? Yes, Cody replied. Protection. Every dollar I transferred was to protect us. Tolls, creditors, anyone who wanted to watch us fail. Hale gave a thin, strained smile. No further questions, Your Honor. But Caldwell stood, heels tapping the floor. She had no notes, no files, only one page of paper. Her gaze on Cody. Brown, she said quietly, you informed us that you sent money to protect your family. Is that right? Yes. And you informed us that Coyote Pass was to be divided among your wives and children equally. Yes. She dramatically flipped the sheet, then described this September 2020 email, where you directed your advisor to set up a trust in Robin Brown's birth name, completely omitting the other wives. The words glared on the projector. Cody's eyes leapt between the screen and the jury. His voice broke. That was just a suggestion, a draft. I didn't mean. It wasn't a draft, Caldwell interrupted. It was sent, signed, and the trust was created. Right? Cody's face clenched. It was created, but it was not intended to be permanent. The prosecutor pressed in. Permanent or not, it existed. And only you and Robin profited, correct? He swallowed hard. Yes, while you explained Coyote Pass as fair to Christine and Janelle, you already excluded them. That isn't protection. That's deception. No, Cody snarled, voice increasing. They were disrespectful. They didn't back me up. Why should I keep giving to women who wronged me? Gasp filled the courtroom. Christine's lips parted in shock. Janelle's eyes flashed. Mary's face contorted for a moment. The jury wrote with a vengeance. In those words, Cody moved from defender to avenger, and everyone heard it good and loud. Caldwell didn't blink. Mr. Brown, did you threaten Christine that if she left, she'd get nothing? Cody hesitated, looking at Christine, then back. Lips separated. Nothing. Answer the question, Caldwell urged, speaking in low, firm tones. I may have made a statement like that, he conceded. You did, she said. And you said it because you'd already taken away any claim of hers, correct? Cody's face went red. No, I was angry, she had betrayed me. I did not mean to, but it was done. Caldwell faced the jury. You heard it. Threats of bankruptcy to keep a wife in line. That is not protection. That is coercion. The courtroom hummed like a hornet's nest. The judge banged his gavel for quiet, but Cody had painted himself into a corner with his words. Caldwell changed course. Mr. Brown, you say that loyalty is the reason you treated Robin better. Is that correct? Yes. So loyalty and not love. She loved me the most. She remained loyal. Your money choices weren't about fairness then. They were favoritism. Cody paused. It was stability. Stability for Robin, but not for the rest. Right? Caldwell whispered, but her words rang out across the courtroom. This trial isn't about protection. It's about control. You controlled the money. You controlled the property. When Christine, Janelle, and Mary attempted to leave, you weaponized that control. Cody's chest rose with labored breaths. Fists gripped the chair arms, until knuckles became white. That's not true. They left me. They broke our family. His voice cracked out across the quiet courtroom. For the first time, Cody Brown did not appear to be a leader. He appeared to be a man losing everything. Caldwell allowed the silence to hang in the air, letting it sit like a burden upon the courtroom. Then she nodded. No further questions, Your Honor. The judge leaned back. The witness may step down. But Cody didn't move immediately. His chest heaved, rapid and shallow. His eyes flitted over the jury, scanning for sympathy, and finding stone. Slowly he rose and shuffled back to the defense table. Hale patted his shoulder. Cody swatted it away, collapsing into the chair like a man drowning in invisible waves. The gallery murmured, soft but persistent. Christine and Janelle looked at each other, not in victory, but grim acceptance. Mary lingered over Cody more than the rest. Sadness etched deeply across her features. The gavel snapped. We will continue tomorrow with the next witness. Court is adjourned. Session 5 concluded, not with epiphany, not with understanding, but the unvarnished, naked sound of Cody's mask cracking. The head of Sister Wives had stood up to defend himself, leaving only ashes behind. His trying to spin it as protection was unsuccessful. Coerced, he admitted to favoritism, intimidation, and lying. The following morning, Session 6 opened with a visible change. The courthouse was alive, vibrating with anticipation. People outside jammed in closer. Camera lenses reflected like hunters' eyes. Whispers bounced against the walls. Nobody had any idea who would go on the stand. Within courtroom 4B, there was a sea of anticipation. The jury and judge swept in. The bailiff brought proceedings to order. Exhaustion seemed to frame the faces of the defense team. Cody sat slumped, lips pursed tightly, eyes dull, colorless, and lacking confidence. Then there was the rise of the prosecutor. Her tone was tranquil, restrained, but bore undeniable power. The state calls Mary Brown. A shiver of shock traveled through the room. Christine and Janelle blinked in surprise. None had anticipated that Mary would testify. Cody's head jerked up, eyes frowning, jaw clenched. Gasp followed gasp through the gallery. Mary stepped out of the crowd, walking forward with quiet confidence. Her steps were soft but determined. She had on a simple black jacket, hair behind her ears, tucked back neatly. Time had etched fatigue into her face, but she wore an air of calm, almost serenity. She had come to terms with her decision to testify. The oath was taken. She sat down. The room held its breath. The prosecutor moved forward, voice soft. Mrs. Brown, you were the defendant's first wife. Yes, Mary replied softly. And you were married to him for 30+ years, she replied unwavering. A lifetime spent bound to the man, standing only 20 feet from her. The jury murmured. 30 years. You have been fairly reserved until now, the prosecutor went on. But today we must listen to you. Speak to the court about your history with Mr. Brown in terms of money, property, and trust. Mary breathed in, letting the air out slowly. Cody, he controlled everything. Not only money, but everything. When we purchased Coyote Pass, I felt like it was ours. Ours. But when Robin came along, everything altered. The money, the negotiations, even the promises. All gone. The vows dissipated. Her tone was subdued, nearly resigned. That silence gave each word an edge, cutting deeper than any anger could. The prosecutor nodded. Did you see him steal money without permission? Mary's fingers knotted together. Yes, frequently. Bank withdrawals counts. I didn't fight like Christine and Janelle. I knew how he'd respond. How would he respond? Her eyes came up slowly, locked on Cody. He'd tell me I was lucky to be here at all, that I should remain silent if I wanted to retain my position. Gasps resonated. Jurors wrote furiously. Cody trembled in his seat, failing to gaze at her. Mary's gaze was steadfast. The prosecutor leaned forward. You used the phrase on the outside looking in. What were you trying to say? Mary's throat tightened. I was the wife he shelved. He paraded me when he needed to present a front. But decisions, money, property, family milestones never involved me. I was a shadow. The gallery shifted uncomfortably. Even veteran reporters hesitated. You waited, the prosecutor said gently. Mary nodded. Yes, I believed him when he said he was protecting us. I believed in the future he offered. I thought, if I waited, if I remained loyal, it would be something. But being loyal wasn't enough. The jury wasn't only hearing testimony. She was watching a life unravel before them in real time. The prosecutor paused, letting silence stretch. then asked, "Mrs. Brown, please explain the hospital incident referenced in your statement." You ever see someone you once knew, someone you had trusted for years, unravel before your eyes, and question how much of what you thought was true? That's the sense that coursed through a courtroom in Arizona, where a man who had previously appeared above reproach, a patriarch with a smiled cameo, and a Tony-constructed world, was finally compelled to stand before the cold light of reality. Picture yourself entering a room in which the air is charged, where each whisper, each sidelong glance, feels like it bears the heavy weight of years of secrets. A room in which 12 strangers have not only the law in their hands, but the destiny of a family, the accounting of a life led in domination, and the silent covert betrayals of those who are closest to you. That was the picture in Courtroom 4B, and to anyone who watched, it was not possible to avert one's eyes. Cody Brown, the star of it all, had constructed a life that appeared flawless on the surface. A big family, a name broadcasted to millions, a personality so groomed that it seemed beyond touch. But in secret, behind the closed doors, there were fissures, small at first, hardly apparent. Fragile changes in trust, hushed dread, and decisions that gradually piled into a mountain of secrets. And the very women who loved him most, those who built their lives around him, began to feel the cracks at the edges. You can almost hear it in their silences. The quiet strength of a woman who has loved with all her heart, but felt unseen. The careful observation of another, counting the ways trust was broken, quietly cataloging betrayals, knowing she had to protect herself, even if it meant holding the truth inside. And the first wife, the one who endured decades on the sidelines, loyal and patient, only to discover that her life, her sacrifices, had been treated as expendable. How does someone reconcile that? How do you continue to live in the shadow of a man who made choices not for the family, not out of love, but to save only himself? This wasn't a tale about money. It wasn't about property or secret accounts. It was about control, about the subtle methods someone uses to play with the people who trust them most. It was about the burden of loyalty, and the agony of understanding that loyalty can be manipulated. How do you comprehend that when it's your own life that's being rewritten, according to someone else's decisions? When the one you believed was your partner, your anchor, shows you that the basis of your common life had been founded on lies. And then there was the turning point. The tape. A basic recorder, a silent machine tucked away, recording the unvarnished facts of words never intended to be uttered. Words that uncovered plotting, nepotism, and treachery. Words that weren't recollections or accusations, they were admissions, and when those voices sang, you felt the decades of trust crumbling in the room. This sort of muted destruction that doesn't shout but makes a wound that can't be healed. You need to ask yourself, what would you do if you were them? Would you ever forgive someone who betrayed you so utterly? Or would you only now find the strength to emerge from the shadows, to tell the truth, even if it meant bearing your own heartbreak to the world? How far does loyalty extend before it snaps? And what is it like to take back your own voice after all the years of being silenced? The courtroom was no longer a mere battle of law. It was a platform for reckoning, for every decision, every lie, every unspoken wound to be measured. It was a trial not only of law, but of human resilience, of bravery, and of the soft, abiding power of truth. Watching it was like seeing a life unspool in real time, agonized, gripping, impossible to turn away from. And as you sit here today, full of questions about what came next, you can almost sense the tension, the silent expectation before the gavel comes down, the way a single moment can change it all for those concerned. You may even find yourself considering your own life, the people you trust, the things you never say, and the strength required to finally confront the truth. Because ultimately, this is not a story about one man or one family. It's a story about the decisions we make, the ones we love, and how truth, when it finally comes out, has the ability to liberate us, or destroy everything we believed we knew. And then what happens is the entire tale of betrayal and heartbreak and comeuppance. The tale of a man who held power over all, and the women who at last stood up to speak. The tale that takes place the moment the courtroom doors shut and the truth comes out. The gavel came down with a resounding crash. Cameras fired in rapid succession. Cody Brown, the erstwhile proud head of America's most publicized plural family, now occupied the defense table, charged with fraud, betrayal, and a secret that might topple all he had created. As the case unfolded, one question hung heavy in the air. Would Cody be walking away, or seeing his kingdom collapse in shackles? Heavy courthouse doors creaked open, and the Arizona sun collided with a tempest of blinding flashes and barking newsmen. Cody, can you say anything? Christine, are you ready to confront him? Microphones jutted out like jousting spears, and for an instant the world had simply ceased to spin, holding its breath for the next eruption. Then silence. The kind that precedes the thunder. In courtroom 4B, the stage was now set. The reality TV hubby turned defendant sat rigidly in the defense table, his hands clutching the highly polished wood, so tight his knuckles turned white. The cocky smile America had grown accustomed to knowing from sister wives had vanished. His eyes scanned the room, restless and desperate, searching for reinforcement that was not there. On the other side of the aisle, the prosecution's side had a different story to share. Christine Brown sat ramrod straight, her jaw clenched and eyes harder than glass. Beside her, Janelle murmured something that caused Christine's lips to curl into the faintest smile. At the far end of the row, Mary sat silent and serene, her face chiseled from stone. The only person missing was Robin, Cody's final wife, standing. Some said she was in hiding. Others hinted she was waiting in the wings. The clerk shuffled papers, and the judge, a firm man with a beard of silver and little patience for foolishness, tugged at his glasses. Court is now in session. The state of Arizona versus Cody Brown. Gasps ran through the courtroom. Successively the charges rang out like drums. Concealment of assets. Misrepresentation of property. Violation of marital financial trust. Cody's face turned beet red. He shook his head, muttering angrily to his lawyer. But all eyes were fastened on him. The shaking jaw, the rapid breathing. Then the real bombshell was dropped. The prosecutor, a tall woman named Marissa Caldwell, stepped forward with calm authority. Her heels cracked sharply against the floor as she opened a thick folder. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began. Her tone firm and deliberate. "What you'll hear today isn't just about a broken marriage. It's about deception. Money hidden, documents forged, assets stolen from women who believed in him." She spun around to confront Cody face to face. This man founded his empire in the name of love and togetherness. But in private, he was constructing another empire. One of greed. The air in the room crackled with energy. Christine's gaze turned cold. Janelle nodded slightly, while reporters frantically took notes. One spoke too loudly. "This is bigger than Coyote Pass." Marissa continued, "We will introduce deeds, words, and witness testimony establishing that Cody Brown hid over $258,000 in hidden accounts. Funds that were his to share with all his wives." Cody slapped the table with his hand, agitation crossing his face. The disguise was dropped. The suave TV husband was nowhere to be seen. In his place was a man trapped, infuriated and vulnerable. And then the first piece of evidence. A big photograph projected for the courtroom to view. It was a deed. Signed prominently by Cody, dated merely months before Christine fled him. The small print told that a significant part of Coyote Pass had been sold into a private trust, one that listed only Cody and Robin as recipients. Gasps hung in the air. Christine was rooted to the spot. Janelle's mouth set in a hard line, and Mary's silence was louder than words. Marissa drove on without pity. "These bank accounts," she held up yet another exhibit, "were opened in Utah, in Robin Brown's name, but credited by Cody's own transfers. Cash withdrawals, wire transfers, all coming back to him." "Objection," Cody's attorney spat. "These documents haven't been certified." The judge's gavel cracked. "Overruled, they'll be admitted conditionally." Cody sat back, teeth gritted, and then the knife. The prosecutor pushed a button, and the courtroom was filled with the electronic buzz of a recording. Then Cody's voice, calm, unshakable. "I just need to take care of Robin and me. The others, they'll do all right for themselves. They always do." Christine's lips shook, but her eyes blazed with defiance. Janelle grumbled. Unbelievable. Mary didn't budge, but a single tear etched its way down her cheek, shining in the light. The jury shifted uncomfortably, their faces ashen with shock. The courtroom hummed like a hornet's nest, until the judge's gavel thudded once again. Order. And yet, this was merely the start. Outside, witnesses waited to peel away every final layer of Cody's carefully constructed tale. Cody's attorney whispered frantically. But Cody sat frozen, staring ahead. The man who once directed every moment of his family's life now had no control at all. The judge finally stood. We'll resume after recess. Court is adjourned. Again the gavel fell. Reporters stormed out, hollering headlines. Christine stood steadfast beside Janelle, and Mary eased quietly from sight. Cody did not budge. His gaze flickered toward the jury, toward the incriminating papers, toward the vacant seat where Robin ought to have sat. For he knew, deep in his heart, this was not a trial, this was his downfall. When court resumed, the bailiff's voice echoed through the room. Call your first witness. Marissa Caldwell straightened her blazer and nodded in the direction of the gallery. Every head swiveled as Christine Brown stood up from her seat. Her heels clicked out a rhythmic beat on the wood floor. No longer the bashful woman of TLC confessions. This was Christine 2.0. Solid, fierce, and not afraid. Her stride did all the talking. This time, she wasn't a part of the narrative. She was there to close it out. Christine Brown wasn't only taking the stand. She was going into war. Her hand shook a little as she put it on the Bible, the pressure of decades weighing down on her voice. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. I do. Her voice was crisp, level, but beneath it seethed tension, heartbreak, and something far more than that, determination. The jury crept forward unconsciously. Christine fluttered a smoothing gesture across her skirt, gazing not at Cody, but at the prosecutor, grasping onto the woman who had provided her a voice after years of nothing. With the first word she uttered, the entire courtroom understood. This wasn't testimony. This was justice. Mrs. Brown, Marissa Caldwell started, walking slowly. You were spiritually wedded to the defendant, Cody Brown, for more than a quarter century. Is that true? Christine nodded. Yes, and was there any involvement by you in the financial affairs of the family? Christine laughed a dry laugh. Involved? No. I was told what he wanted me to know, when it was convenient for him. Decisions were made in secret. I was told afterward, if at all. The jury wrote furiously. A woman in the front row with a pointed bob leaned forward, eyes squeezing together, listening intently. Tell us about Coyote Pass, Marissa said. Christine took a deep, grounding breath. Coyote Pass was to be our ideal, something we created together. He said we'd both have our own home there, that it was for the family. She hesitated, her face hardening. But that wasn't reality. Cody shifted uncomfortably in his chair, jaw clenching, whispering frantically to his attorney. But Christine was no longer discussing real estate. She was revealing a history of deceit. In 2019, she went on, I discovered, accidentally, that some of Coyote Pass had been transferred into trust in Cody and Robin's names. We had no idea. Not a word from him. Smile for the cameras, talk unity, behind our backs cut us out. The gallery exploded in whispers. Pen scratched against notepad on reporters' faces. How did you discover it? The prosecutor asked softly. Mary heard him say it, Christine said, her voice constricting. When I asked Cody, he waved it off. Told me I was paranoid. Told me I didn't get finances. That he was doing this for us. She let out a wry laugh, the sound catching in her throat. Doing it for us. He was doing it for himself. And Robin. Cody leaned forward, face red with rage. The jury wasn't merely hearing this, now they felt it. Brown. Marissa pushed. Did the defendant frequently make money decisions without first checking with his other wives? Christine faced him for the first time. Her eyes were icy. Every time, cars, loans, investments. He spent family money like it was his own. When we confronted him, he'd taunt us, make us feel insignificant, like we should be thankful he was at the helm. The jury visibly responded. One man's pencil broke in two mid-note. Can you tell me about the day you decided to leave him? The air became quiet. Even the judge leaned forward. Christine's tone softened. It was the day I knew he didn't love me. No longer. He only loved what I provided. My obedience, my silence. When those were taken away, I meant nothing to him. She swallowed hard. That day I noticed a bank transfer. $40,000. From our family account into Robin's. Gasps broke out. Cody pounded the table with a light blow, his attorney holding him back. Christine didn't bat an eye. Marissa held up a folder. Your Honor, Exhibit C. Documentation of a $40,000 transfer from the joint account of the Browns. Mrs. Brown, is this what you observed? Christine gazed down at the paper, her jaw clenched.
Yes.
That's it. And whose name appears on the receiving account? Christine's eyes drifted to Cody. Her words sliced the air sharply. Robin Brown. The gallery erupted once more. The judge's gavel slammed for order. Marissa paused a moment, then asked quietly, Mrs. Brown, how did that discovery affect you? Christine blinked back tears, but her voice stayed steady. It destroyed me, not because of the money, but because it proved what I'd feared for years. That my sacrifices, my loyalty, my family's future, they never mattered. He chose Robin. He chose money. And he lied about everything. Silence blanketed the courtroom. Even the reporter's pen stopped. But then Christine inhaled sharply. There's something else. Marissa raised her eyebrows.
Yes.
Go on. Last night I said goodbye to him. Christine replied, her voice low and trembling with suppressed anger.
He summoned me.
Then he explained to me that if I left, I'd receive nothing. No property. No cash. That the courts had no jurisdiction, because everything was already in storage. She paused, her constricted throat working.
Yes.
Then he eyeballed me straight, and told me, you'll crawl back in poverty. They always do. The courtroom gasped, as one. The judge's gavel came down hard. Order. Christine leaned back, her hands shaking, but her eyes never left Cody's face. His mask cracked at last. The charm was gone. The mask shattered. The prosecutor nodded in satisfaction.
Yes.
The defense attorney, a sleek man in his 50s, rose calmly. Mrs. Brown, he began, voice smooth as glass. You've been separated from my client for quite some time, haven't you?
Yes.
And your feelings toward him are less than friendly, correct? Christine gave a short, bitter laugh. That's one way to say it. So it's possible, he pressed, that you're biased. No, I'm not biased. I'm finally free to speak. The attorney smiled thinly. Of course. And isn't it true that after you left Mr. Brown, you gave interviews, wrote blog posts, cashed in on your version of events? Yes, I testified. Because truth was all I had left. After 25 years of silence, I'll keep telling it. Because it's the only weapon I've got against a man who silenced me for decades. The courtroom burst into gasps again. The lawyer stuttered, fidgeting with papers. And you'd gain financially from his conviction, wouldn't you? He attempted to continue. Christine leaned forward, her voice cutting through the room. The only thing I'll gain is justice. Money can't buy back years of lies. That line landed like a hammer. The defense lawyer blinked, speechless. Recess, the judge finally ordered. Christine stood up, ashen but defiant, stepping down from the stand. She went by Cody with not even a glance. He turned and followed her with his eyes, his face contorting between anger and remorse. The jury registered each shifting emotion. As Christine took her seat next to Janelle, the atmosphere in the courtroom changed. The power dynamic had shifted. It was no longer a trial about TV. It wasn't plural marriage. It was about power and what becomes of the one who exercised it when he finally loses control. Christine had struck the match. Now the blaze was going to fan out. The courtroom crackled with anticipation, as Cody's attorney struggled to get back in command. The next witness, Janelle, might be the ace the whole case needed. All rise, the bailiff shouted, silencing the low rumble of murmurs. The judge strode back into the room, robe billowing like a storm cloud. Everyone stood up. You could sense it. Something had shifted. The morning had been a wake-up call. Now the counterattack. As the judge rapped the gavel once, defense attorney Martin Hale was already standing. Hale was no ordinary lawyer. Each was a wizard with words. Yes, and also one who could destroy witnesses like tissue paper. He buttoned his suit laboriously, like a gunslinger loading his revolver, then strolled toward the stand, where Christine Brown waited in the witness chair. Christine Brown, he began smoothly, his voice dripping with practiced confidence. You understand you're still under oath? Christine lifted her chin. I do. Good. Hale turned to the jury, offering a faint smile. Because today we're going to separate fact from fiction. The room seemed to tighten. This wasn't testimony anymore. It was war. Hale slapped a pile of papers against his hand. Yesterday you said under oath that my client put property into a trust in secret with only his and Robin's names. Right? Yes? Isn't it true? Hale said slowly, drawing out the words. That in 2018 you signed an agreement in a legal document that your name would not be on that deed. Christine blanched. I signed what he gave me. I was assured it was routine forms. But you did sign it, didn't you? I did. But I didn't know what it actually was. Hale waved the paper aloft. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Exhibit D, Mrs. Brown's signature on the waiver. She now claims she didn't know what it was. A murmur ran through the jurors. Cody inched forward, the smallest smirk on his lips. Christine's attorney jumped up. Objection, mischaracterization of the document. Overruled, the judge said flatly. The jury will decide. Hale rested on the witness box, voice edging sharper. Mrs. Brown, you're a smart woman. You worked raising children, kept a home, even operated small businesses. Are you seriously telling me you didn't know what you were signing? Christine's voice sharpened. I'm telling you that my husband lied to me, bullied me, and kept the truth from me. That's what I'm telling you. Hale's smile grew thinner. Coerced? Or just didn't receive the reaction you needed? Christine's eyes flashed. Coerced? Manipulated? Gaslighted? The gallery gasped. Pens scribbled wildly across reporters' notepads. Let's discuss money. Hale went on, not seeming to notice the tension. You say my client sent $40,000 to Robin's account. Is it not a fact that you were siphoning money from the family business at the same time that for yourself? Christine blinked. I took what I needed to live. I was cut off. But you did withdraw cash. I withdrew money I made from my own online sales. Do you have evidence of that? Hale pushed, cocking his head with a grin. Christine faltered. The defense was making circles, throwing up smoke to mislead the jury. Hale posed dramatically to the jury, with outstretched arms. We have a witness who acknowledges she signed over her rights, acknowledges she accepted money, and now wants you to think she's a victim of a conspiracy. Objection? Christine's attorney snapped. Argumentative, sustained. The judge responded sternly. Hale shifted his tone. Mrs. Brown, let's talk about your interviews. You gave national media interviews after you left my client, didn't you? Yes, and you were compensated for those interviews? Yes, but, so you made money off of this story. I shared my story, Christine said levelly. The truth as you interpret it. Hale retorted. Christine leaned forward, her voice level and cutting. The truth as it occurred. The room was in silence. Jurors frowned at Hale's brusqueness. Others wrote notes. Hale retreated. No further questions. Before anyone could even breathe, the prosecutor stood up. Redirect, Your Honor. Proceed. Marissa Caldwell walked up to the stand, heels clicking like a drumbeat. Mrs. Brown, did Mr. Brown ever explain to you what that 2018 document actually was? Christine's eyes welled up with tears. No, he told me it was routine tax forms. He didn't say it took away my rights. Marissa waved the identical sheet in the air. Ladies and gentlemen, Exhibit D. Look, no notary, no attorney signature. This was not a waiver. This was a placeholder. And Mr. Brown never filed it in the county. A courtroom gasp filled the air. Jurors' eyes moved to Cody, whose face had paled. Marissa continued. Mrs. Brown, when you withdrew cash from the family business, were you withdrawing it from Mr. Brown's secret accounts? Cody's head jerked toward her, panic flashing across his face. Mary closed her eyes briefly, gathering herself, then opened them. Yes, it was 20, 21. Robin was ill. Cody was late at night in the hospital. I just dropped by, unannounced. At first he didn't notice me. Then I overheard him speaking with a nurse about notarizing some documents. I didn't catch it. Then I overheard him say, "Robin needs to be safe. The rest will take care of themselves." Whispers circulated. Christine covered her mouth. Janelle's jaw clenched. When he saw me, Mary went on, her voice shaking. He stopped cold. He said I must have dreamed it, that I was imagining things, but I wasn't. I knew exactly what I heard. I was already erased. The gallery hummed, murmurs rising. The judge banged his gavel. Order in the court. Caldwell leaned in, his voice aggressive. So while the family thought they were equal partners, Mr. Brown was already making sure Robin alone would be taken care of? Yes. Mary replied. Level but firm, every word a knife. No questions further, Your Honor, she finished. Martin Hale stood up, smooth and unhurried. Mrs. Brown, 30 years is a very long time. Is it not so that your testimony is tainted by resentment, by the fact that you were replaced? Mary blinked slowly. Of course I felt replaced, because I was. But that doesn't change what I heard or saw. Hale pressed, you were married all those years. If he was such a monster, why not leave? Mary's lips shook, voice knife-sharp. Because I loved him, because I trusted him, because I was afraid to begin again, because I didn't know how to go. None of that alters the fact. A murmur spread through the jury. A woman wiped away tears. Mary's agony was not only testimony, it was evidence inscribed in every molecule of her body. Hale prodded again. Mrs. Brown, might you have misheard that night at the hospital? Mary shook her head. No, I know exactly what I heard. And the look in his eyes when he knew I had heard it, that said it all. He wasn't surprised I got it wrong. He knew I hadn't. Mary had walked out, Cody gaping at the space where she had been. For the first time he didn't simply look defeated. He looked vulnerable. Hale hesitated, jaw clamped tight. Then he let out a breath. No further questions. Mary passed by Cody without a look. He spun to face her, pleading, whispering to himself, Mary, don't do this. She didn't hesitate. She didn't even blink. The doors of the courtroom shut softly behind her. Her soft-spoken testimony struck harder than any scream because truth in a whisper pierces deeper than lies in a shout. The judge looked at his docket. We will pick up with closing witnesses tomorrow morning. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Whispers erupted through the gallery. Porters rushed Christine and Janelle. Headlines flashed across the internet before Cody could even rise. Mary breaks silence. Cody's secret hospital recording exposed. Cody sat hunched at the defense table, hollow-eyed, staring at the doorway Mary had vanished through. Hale leaned close, whispering strategy, but Cody's thoughts were elsewhere, tormented by the soft desolation of Mary's words. The following morning, courtroom 4B was filled to the gill. Fans, reporters and spectators had spent the night in line, hoping to catch a glimpse of what the papers already termed the tape. The bailiff called the court to order. The judge swept in, robe flowing, face set as stone. The jury entered, tension etched on every face. At the defense table Cody slouched, hair rumpled, jaw clenched. Hale leaned close, whispering urgently, but Cody hardly moved. His eyes flicked to the evidence table, where a small black recorder sat like a live grenade. The prosecutor rose. Your Honor, the state calls Detective Elena Ruiz. A woman in her 40s, eyes sharp as razors, voice calm but firm, took the stand. She swore the oath and seated herself. Detective Ruiz, the prosecutor started. How did the recording we are going to play come into existence? Yes, Ruiz answered. As part of our financial investigation, we executed a search warrant on the defendant's home office. In a locked drawer, there was a digital voice recorder. On it were several files, one of them being the recording you are going to hear. A whisper spread in the gallery. The jurors crept forward. The time had arrived. Cody's off-the-record words about his family, about Coyote Pass, were about to be heard. Your Honor, the prosecutor went on. We introduce Exhibit Hates. The audio tape Family Future 2. The judge nodded. Admitted. The clerk depressed play. Static hissed. Then Cody's recognizable voice filled the room. Robin, listen. I've said it. We have to defend what's ours. Christine's auntie, Janelle's interrogating Mary. They run. I'm not cutting things in half. I worked for it. I created it. They'll manage on their own like they always do. Robin, you and me now. The others, dead. The words cut like knives. Christine's hand shot to her mouth. Eyes wide open. Janelle stood stiff. Arms stiff. Mary, seated in the balcony, shut her eyes, silent tears streaming. The jury gasped as one. One juror shook her head in disbelief. Another wrote wildly, pen shaking. Cody rested forward, hands grasping the table like a man desperate to dig his way out. This wasn't hearsay, not memory or resentment. This was him, betraying everyone on his own terms. The recording went on. Sunrise Holdings is on standby. Reynolds tells us, if we move in steps of less than a dozen, no flags, the rest won't know what happened. Gasps reverberated like thunder. The judge pounded the gavel. Order? I will have order. But order was lost. The gallery hummed. Porters yelled. Jurors exchanged stunned looks. Even the bailiff clamped his jaws. The tape whirred off. Silence descended, heavy and oppressive. The prosecutor spoke in calm, measured tones. Detective Ruiz, was this recording verified? Yes, Ruiz replied. Forensic evidence establishes it is Mr. Brown's voice. It hasn't been edited, it is raw. You heard it yourselves, the prosecutor went on, addressing the jury. The defendant wasn't fighting for his family, he was plotting against them. He referred to them as dead weight, stated their futures were worthless, and manipulated all of this to look out only for himself and Robin. The jury's gaze pierced Cody. Disgust, sympathy, none apathetic. The head of the family was dead. In front of them stood a man, caught red-handed. Hale sprang to his feet. Objection. Out of context. We don't know whom he was addressing, and why. The judge rapped on the bench. Overruled. The jury will take this recording as evidence. Hale turned to Cody. Angry whisper. Cody shook his head with great force, lips moving soundlessly. They weren't supposed to hear it. Weren't supposed to hear it. No further questions. The prosecutor answered. Pleased. Hale struggled to take over. Detective Ruiz, the recording could have been made at any time. Did you establish the date? Yes. Ruiz answered. September 2020. Metadata verifies it. Context? Hale asked. Maybe my client was venting, hypotheticals. Ruiz's eyes cut through the courtroom. He wasn't complaining. He was giving orders. You can tell by his tone of voice. The jury nodded. The gravity of those words settling. Hale glared, vanquished. No additional questions. Christine came back for rebuttal. Pale but firm, she stood before the jury. Yes, she explained. That is precisely who he was behind closed doors. He always used to say, if you leave, you get nothing. Now you understand what that meant. Janelle contributed, cold and exact. The money trails, the transfers, the deceptions. Everything fits. He confessed it. The jurors wrote, their heads shaking in disgust. Cody pounded his fist on the table. This is sick. You don't know. This was personal. The judge's gavel came down. Mr. Brown, you will be quiet. Cody's explosion wasn't defense. It was desperation. The jury noticed. The prosecutor rested. The state has nothing further, Your Honor. The gavel came down. Court recessed. But the courtroom did not clear peacefully. Porters rushed. Reporters yelled. The tape had gone viral before doors were even closed. Cody Brown calls wives dead weight. Across the room, Christine and Janelle exchanged a somber look. Mary glided quietly, eyes shining with unshed tears. Cody leaned over the defense table, face buried in hands. Hale attempted to say something, but Cody swayed gently, repeating, they weren't supposed to hear it. They weren't supposed to hear it. The jurors exited, faces somber, the tape ringing in their ears. Phrases like fire seared deep into memory. Dead weight, survival on own, Robin and me. The patriarch was brought low, and in his own words, the betrayal was not to be doubted. The tape had altered everything. Session 8 began in courtroom 4B to a stillness that was palpable, thick, almost choking. It wasn't the clatter of the previous days. It was the stillness that precedes the next flash of lightning. The jury entered, serious eyes ahead. Porters shifted in their chairs, pens at the ready, cameras at the ready. but even they spoke softly, as if not wishing to disrupt the tension. All were aware of the storm they were to see. At the defense table, Cody Brown slumped, emaciated, tie undone, suit disheveled. 10 years had elapsed in 10 days. His attorney, Martin Hale, straightened his papers with ritualistic form, but his countenance revealed the burden of a soldier going to war in battered armor. On the other side of the aisle, Marissa Caldwell methodically shuffled her papers, serene, unruffled, but each motion seemed to emanate strength. Christine, Janelle, and Mary sat side by side in the front pew, faces set, eyes fixed forward, a topography of women toughened by years of silence, now granted permission to speak. The judge appeared, robe fluttering. The bailiff commanded the court to attention. The gavel snapped. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the judge proclaimed, now hear closing arguments. This was it, the last chance to spin the story before 12 unknowns decided Cody Brown's destiny. Caldwell walked first, slowly to the middle, quiet stretched out, while her eyes roamed the jury, eyes meeting eyes one by one. Good morning, she said softly but firmly. You have sat through 8 days of testimony. You have heard Christine Brown detail the lies, the threats, the intimidation. You've listened to Janelle Brown recite the figures, the secret accounts, the shell corporations, the money diverted. You've listened to Mary Brown talk about being erased, silenced, informed she was fortunate just to live in the shadows of a marriage. And then you listened to him, with your own ears. Cody Brown's voice, informing his wives that they were dead weight. His words scheming to look out only for himself and Robin. This is not TV drama. This is not polygamy. This is fraud, betrayal. A man exploiting his position as husband and father to profit from those who trusted him most. She pressed a remote. A projector illuminated the wall. Red and blue bars shot up in serrated peaks. Payments into Robin's account. Withdrawals of joint money. Each demand he made of his wives equaled an entry. Each appeal for fidelity equaled a betrayal. The jury saw the pile of deception build before them. Caldwell's tone mellowed, nearly intimate. Think of loyalty. Christine was loyal for 25 years. Janelle, nearly 30. Mary even when she was erased. And how did he reward them? He stole from them. He threatened them. He told them they were nothing. Today, you may tell him he was wrong. Her voice grew louder, solid, unbreakable. We ask you to find the defendant guilty on all counts. The hush that followed was heavy, almost palpable. Caldwell had constructed a betrayal mural. It was Hale's turn. He stood up slowly, adjusted his coat, touched his tie, and approached the middle. He looked at Cody's empty eyes, then to the jury with a weak, anxious smile. Ladies and gentlemen, he started, smooth and deliberate. You have heard tales, accusations, recollections, tapes. Your task is not to be sympathetic. Your task is to weigh. He took a step forward, loosely interlocking fingers. Family is complicated. Divorce is complicated. When people get hurt, when things get emotional, words are spoken, feelings are misunderstood. That is human nature. That is not fraud. You overheard emails, but do we truly know the entire context? You overheard a tape, but was it an enforceable contract, or an upset man ranting in the quiet of his own home? He left the question hanging. If we were judged on our worst moments, would any of us be worthy of losing everything? Hale's tone became more assertive. Christine wrote checks. Janelle cashed money. Mary hung in there, after years of being relegated to the sidelines. These aren't the actions of women who were defrauded. They are actions of women damaged and bitter, attempting to remake the past. He opened his arms. Cody Brown is not perfect. He is not a model husband. But this case is about criminal fraud. And on that charge, the state has not met its burden beyond a reasonable doubt. Do not let anger control your verdict. Do not let resentment rule destiny. Review the facts. And when you do, you will see the truth. Cody Brown is innocent. He nodded, gathered his papers, and went back to his seat. The courtroom sighed as a whole. The prosecution had tugged at the heart. The defense had tugged at reason. And the jury sat, bearing both weights. The judge looked at the clock. Members of the jury, you will be instructed tomorrow morning, and then retire to deliberate. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. The gallery exploded. Reporters burst forward. Cameras flashed. Microphones screamed. Christine and Janelle hugged hurriedly, hope tamped down by years of terror. Mary walked softly, pale face, gleaming eyes fighting back unshed tears. At the defense table, Cody slumped forward, muttering again and again, "They won't convict me. They can't," but the fear in his eyes gave him away. Session 9 would begin in deliberations. 22 hours of waiting, subdued speculation, and anticipation had reached a fever pitch. The jury would soon stand to render a verdict that could bring everything to an end. Outside, flashbulbs flashed, reporters spoke into microphones, and a tide of spectators pushed against barricades. Within 4B, the air was thick, bordering on monastic. Christine clasped her hands together, lips whispering silent prayers she had never been brave enough to utter previously. Janelle stood rigidly forward, jaw clenched, as if the verdict could be willed into existence. Mary sat isolated, whitewashed as stone, calm but raging inward. Cody grasped himself at the defense table, every nerve stretched taut. His curls were limp, his suit rumpled, his eyes flicked toward the door, every second or two, as if waiting for an exit that no longer beckoned. The jury sat poised. The verdict teetered. Martin Hale murmured in hushed tones, but Cody hardly nodded. His lips moved wordlessly, reciting the mantra he grasped. "They won't convict me. They can't." The bailiff strode in. "All rise." The gavel slammed. The judge slid in, robe billowing like a cloud, face stern, eyes piercing. "Bring in the jury." Each pulse within the room, aligned as 12 strangers bore Cody Brown's destiny through the doorway. The jurors entered, faces blank, eyes straight ahead, hands folded, not a spark to the gallery, not an eye towards Cody. They took their seats, a stoic presence. The judge's voice cut through, implacable. "Madam Foreperson, has the jury reached a verdict?" An older woman stood up, glasses balanced precariously on her nose. Her hands shook as she clutched the creased paper. "Yes, Your Honor, we do." The bailiff took the paper from her and handed it to the judge, who read it in grave silence before nodding. "Will the defendant stand?" Cody stood up slowly, legs locked, body shaking. He glanced at the jury, then Christine, Janelle, and Mary. They didn't flinch, didn't change. "Madam Foreperson," read the verdict. The courtroom hinged forward, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Silence drew out like forever, then broke. "In the case of the state of Arizona, against Cody Brown, on the indictment of fraud, we the jury find the defendant guilty." Gasps burst across the gallery. Christine's hands went to her mouth, tears streaming. Janelle breathed out a breath she hadn't known she'd been holding, eyes hard but brimming. Mary closed her eyes, a single tear coursing her cheek. The foreperson went on. "On the charge of concealment of assets, guilty. On the charge of misrepresentation of property ownership, guilty. On the count of willful violation of marital financial trust, guilty." Cody's face twisted, his knees folded for a split second, before Hale grabbed him, grunting through gritted teeth. Every word fell like a sledgehammer. The public gallery exploded. Writers were typing wildly, yelled into phones, some hardly stifling gasps. The courtroom boomed with the chanting of one word, "Guilty. Guilty." Christine cried, shoulders quivering. Janelle slipped an arm around her shoulders. Mary dabbed a single tear, allowing none other to slip past the vigilant cameras. Cody clutched the rim of the defense table, mouth agape in pointless protest. He scowled first at the jurors, then at the judge, then at Hale, and finally at the women who had been his everything, his wives. Their faces were cold, expressionless. No welcome remained. The voice of the judge boomed through the din. 30 days from today, sentencing will be. The defendant is remanded into custody for sentencing. Metal clicked in the air as the bailiff moved in. Cody Brown, the king of a sprawling reality television empire, now handcuffed, wrists shackled, eyes vacant. Flashes burst, reporters yelled, but he barely heard them. His lips worked again, hissing. "They can't. They can't." A man who had commanded all, money, houses, wives, lives, now commanded nothing, not even his own freedom. The gavel came down a final time. Court adjourned. Outside, the courthouse steps were a whirlwind of chaos. Cameras clicked, reporters yelled, phones rang, headlines blared. Cody Brown, found guilty on all counts. Crowds rushed, some in anger, some in celebration, some chanting Christine's name, as though she was the symbol of resilience, justice, and survival. The drama of deceit, betrayal, and broken trust had finally reached its peak, and the world had seen the downfall of a patriarch, naked in the spotlight of reality. Christine and Janelle strolled hand in hand, accompanied by guards. Mics were pushed into their faces, cameras popping like firecrackers. This had nothing to do with vengeance, Christine stated, voice shaking. This was about truth, and today the truth got its message out. Janelle articulated softly but firmly. This verdict is for every woman who's ever been silenced, every wife who was ever told she didn't matter. Today we mattered. Mary walked out by herself, head down, voice too quiet to be heard, but cameras recorded each tear that fell down her cheeks. Far away, Robin was out of sight, but her silence was more vocal than any words. The world was no longer viewing a reality television show. It was viewing real life. Within the courthouse, the jury slipped out the back quietly, some exhausted, others determined. A whispered remark drifted between two. It was the tape. That tape sealed it. In the holding cell, Cody sat, wrists cuffed, hair falling in his eyes. The verdict hung over him like a mountain. There were no cameras to charm, no wives to perform for, no script to act out, only silence. He whispered, as if to himself. They weren't supposed to hear it. 30 days later, the Arizona courthouse was packed again. Not only reporters and groupies, but protesters, supporters, skeptics, and TV crews from all over the world. The verdict had become a cultural earthquake. Within Courtroom 4B, the tension was thick. Jury benches were vacant, but the audience filled the aisles. Christine sat front row, hands clasped, calm but pale. Janelle had her arms crossed, jaw clenched. Mary said nothing, eyes glassy. Cody Brown arrived, dressed in a simple borrowed suit, hair matted, face gaunt. His wrists were unshackled, yet the bailiff remained close. Martin Hale, sleep-deprived, shuffled papers, hands slightly shaking. The bailiff summoned the court to session. The gavel boomed like thunder. This court is now in session for sentencing. Prosecutor Marissa Caldwell stood, statuesque and authoritative. Your Honor, the evidence has spoken. The jury has spoken. Mr. Brown shattered the trust of his family, usurped money, and laughed at fairness. We ask for the maximum sentence allowed, 20 years, with restitution to the victims. Hale rose, voice tired. Your Honor, my client poses no threat to society. He made mistakes, driven by desperation, not hatred. He has 18 children. We ask for leniency, mercy, probation rather than prison. Cody leapt to his feet, voice quavering. He begged, Your Honor, please, I was protecting my family. I did everything for them. Don't make me leave my children. The room gasped. The women remained stony-faced. The judge held up a hand. Mr. Brown, you can speak to the court, following victim comments. Christine went first. Your Honor, I trusted him for years. I gave everything, my time, loyalty, silence. Today, I want recognition that what he did was wrong, that we mattered. Janelle's turn next. I was the bookkeeper. I saw money disappear. I raised kids on scraps, while he stashed money. This wasn't betrayal or desperation, or love. Mary was the last, whispery, dainty, nearly fragile. I stayed because of loyalty and fear. But when I heard him say we were dead weight, I knew he erased us as people. That hurt will never heal. At last Cody stood, shaking with fear. I know I wasn't perfect. I made mistakes, but I did everything I could to protect us. If you put me away, I lose everything. My kids lose me. Please, don't do this. The judge's words sliced through. Mr. Brown, you were given the responsibility of your family's welfare. You manipulated, you hid, and you profited. You disappointed their trust and every code of integrity. For that, this court finds you guilty and sentences you to 20 years in state prison, with the possibility of parole after 12, and restitution of $400,000. The gavel came down. The room was filled with gasps. Cody's knees gave way. His attorney caught him. Christine sobbed openly. Janelle shook with relief. Mary silently wept. Then Caldwell rose. Uncharacteristically, Your Honor, the state has one last piece of evidence. A slender envelope traveled across the table. The projector hummed to life, showing a deed. The room gasped. Another piece of property, bought under a hidden trust, for almost $5 million. Cody paled, shaking his head. No. They weren't supposed to find it. The judge banged the gavel. Order, Caldwell went on coldly. This establishes the fraud was greater than we had assumed. Victims are entitled to restitution in full. The coup de grace, restitution hiked to $5 million. Cody, handcuffed again. Lips trembling. It was hidden. It was hidden. The bailiff let him out. Cameras flashed. Reporters yelled. Christine covered her face with her hands. Janelle gasped. And Mary said nothing. The gavel came down one last time. Court was adjourned. The Patriarch went out in chains. Behind him lay only rubble. Cody Brown, 20 years, $5 million restitution. The women, survivors, witnesses, and now symbols of justice. The courtroom drama had ended. But the tale of betrayal, deception, and survival would reverberate far beyond the courtroom walls.